The doorbell rang at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, and August Calloway almost didn't answer it. He was still in his work shirt, loosened at the collar, half a glass of water on the counter going warm. Marcus. His son, 8 years old and finally asleep after 2 failed attempts, had kicked off his blanket again, and August had just tucked it back and was standing in the hallway doing that thing parents do sometimes, just standing there, listening to the quiet like it might not last. The bell rang again. August came downstairs slow, not rushing. Nobody rings your bell at midnight with good news. He looked through the peephole and saw a woman he didn't recognize. Late 30s, dark coat, hair pulled back tight like she'd been in a boardroom 6 hours ago and hadn't quite come down from it yet. She was holding a manila envelope against her chest. He opened the door with the chain still on. "August Calloway?" she said. "Depends who's asking. My name is Petra Vance." She reached into her coat pocket and produced a business card, held it through the gap. "I'm an attorney with Mercer and Cole in New York. I was a close friend of your brother's." August unlatched the chain. He hadn't seen Damon in 4 years. That was the truth he didn't tell people, the one that sat in his chest like a stone he'd stopped trying to move. They'd grown up in the same house in Houston, shared a room until Damon left for college at 17 on a full scholarship, and then the years had done what years do, stretched the distance between them until the distance started to feel normal. Damon had built something up north. A consulting firm, small but respected, clients in finance and real estate. He'd sent Marcus a birthday card every year without fail, $20 tucked inside until Marcus got older, and then it was a gift card to whatever store Damon guessed an 8-year-old might like. August had always meant to call and say thank you in a way that turned into a real conversation. He never did, and then 6 weeks ago, Damon was gone. A blood clot, sudden, no warning. 43 years old and gone between one Tuesday and the next. August had made it to the funeral. He'd stood at the graveside and hadn't cried. Not because he didn't feel it, but because he hadn't figured out yet what exactly he was feeling. Grief for the brother he'd lost, yes, but also grief for the version of that relationship they'd never gotten around to having. That kind of grief doesn't have a clean shape. Petra Vance had been at the funeral. He remembered her now, standing slightly apart from the others, like someone who's learned how to be present without intruding. He hadn't known who she was then. He knew now. She sat across from him at the kitchen table with the envelope between them. She didn't move to open it, and August noticed that her eyes were red at the edges in a way she'd clearly decided not to address. "Damon left a will," she said. "His firm, his assets, his life insurance, all of it goes into a trust. But there's a condition attached to the primary distribution." "What kind of condition?" She was quiet for a moment. He wanted Marcus to be raised with someone who understood what it meant to build something, not just to inherit it. She paused. "He named me as co-guardian." The kitchen went very still. "Co-guardian," August repeated. "Not primary. You remain primary. But he wanted me involved. Actively involved. He specified 90 days of. His words were, genuine shared responsibility. He said if that condition wasn't met, the trust would be redirected to a foundation instead. August set his glass down carefully. "Damon named a woman I've never met to co-parent my son. He named someone who he believed could give Marcus something specific." She looked down at the envelope. "And yes, he named me." "Why you?" She didn't answer right away. Then, August didn't sleep that night. He sat on the back porch for a while, which was something he did when things got too loud in his head. The yard was small, more concrete than grass. A basketball hoop at the far end that Marcus had begged for and used approximately 4 times. August had bought it anyway. That was the thing about being someone's only parent. You bought the basketball hoop, you signed up for the swim lessons, you Googled science fair ideas at midnight, and you did it all in the space where another person used to be. Marcus's mother, Janelle, had left when Marcus was 18 months old. Not dramatically, no fight, no ultimatum, just a slow, honest conversation one evening where she'd said she wasn't built for this, and August had believed her because she'd said it so calmly. She'd moved to Portland, sent money when she could, called on birthdays. Marcus knew she existed. He'd stopped asking about her somewhere around age 5, and August had taken that as a sign that the boy had filed it away in whatever internal drawer children use for things they've decided not to need. August had done everything since. Everything. The school pickups, and the sick days, and the nightmares, and the first loose tooth, and the talk about why some kids at school said mean things, and what to do when someone made you feel small. He'd done it tired, and he'd done it scared, and sometimes he'd done it while quietly wondering what kind of man he was becoming through all of it. And now his dead brother's lawyer was sitting at his kitchen table, telling him she wanted to co-parent his child for 90 days. In the morning, Marcus came downstairs in his dinosaur pajamas, saw August at the kitchen table looking like he hadn't moved, and said, "Did you sleep out here?" For a little while, Marcus considered this with the gravity that 8-year-olds sometimes bring to things. Was it comfortable? Not really. Okay, he opened the refrigerator. "We're out of orange juice. I know. Can we get some?" "Yeah, bud." That was the whole conversation. Efficient, affectionate, no excess. August had always thought that was fine. Standing there watching his son pour himself a glass of water, with the careful focus of someone performing a small important task, he wondered, for the first time, if fine was enough. Petra Vance came back 3 days later. August had called her attorney's office to confirm she was real. She was, and to pull the relevant section of Damon's will, which a paralegal emailed him as a PDF that he read 4 times before he believed it. She knocked at 7 in the evening. Marcus answered before August could get to the door, which was the kind of thing 8-year-olds do. "Hi," Marcus said. Petra looked down at him with an expression that August would think about later. Not performance. Not the face adults make when they're trying to seem good with kids. Something more careful than that, something close to uncertainty. "Hi," she said back. "I'm Petra. I was a friend of your Uncle Damon's." Marcus processed this. "He died. I know. I miss him a lot." "Me too," Marcus said. "I only met him twice, but he was really funny." He held the door open wider. "Do you want some water? We have orange juice now, too." August appeared at the end of the hallway. Petra caught his eye over Marcus's head. "Orange juice sounds great," she said. They talked for 2 hours after Marcus went to bed. Petra sat on one side of the kitchen table and August sat on the other, and they went through it the way 2 careful people go through something neither one of them had chosen. She'd grown up in Philadelphia, gone to Penn Law, built a career in estate planning that had somehow turned into a small specialty in family trust law. She'd met Damon at a conference in D.C. 7 years ago, and they'd become friends in the particular way that professional adults sometimes do. Dinners when she was in New York, long phone calls when work got complicated. The kind of friendship that didn't look like much from the outside but ran deeper than most things that do. "He talked about Marcus constantly," she said. "Every time I spoke to him, he'd ask about you, and then I'd say I don't know your brother, and he'd tell me some story from when you were kids like that, was the same thing. He talked to you about me. He felt guilty. For the distance." She looked at her glass. "He was going to call you. He had it on his calendar. He just ran out of time." August didn't say anything. "I'm not here to take anything from you," she said. "I want to be clear about that. I know what this looks like. A stranger showing up with a legal document and a claim on your family." She pushed the envelope slightly toward him. "I'm not claiming anything. I'm asking if we can try what Damon wanted. 90 days, I find a short-term lease nearby. I'm around in whatever capacity makes sense. I don't push. I don't overstep. What does Damon's money have to do with it?" She was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, nothing. I didn't ask him to include the financial provision." That was his idea. He thought you'd be more likely to agree if there were practical stakes. A faint, slightly pained smile. He knew you were stubborn. He told you that? Several times. August looked at her for a long moment. What do you get out of this? She looked him straight in the eye. I lost my best friend 6 weeks ago, and the only people on earth who knew him the way I did are sitting in this house. August said no. He said it the next morning, via text, professional and final. I appreciate you explaining everything. I don't think this is something I can agree to. I'll have my attorney reach out regarding the estate, Petra replied. Understood. I'm sorry to have put you in this position. Take care of yourself and Marcus. That should have been the end of it. Except that 2 days later, Marcus came home from school with a drawing he'd made in art class. It was a family portrait. August could tell because he'd been watching Marcus make versions of this drawing for 3 years, the same careful shapes, the same crayon sun in the corner. But this one was different. This one had 3 figures instead of 2. Who's the third one? August asked. Marcus didn't look up from his backpack. I don't know. I just felt like it needed one more. August kept the drawing. He put it on the refrigerator with a magnet next to Marcus's spelling test and a takeout menu from the Thai place on Westheimer. He stood in front of it that night for a long time. He called Petra the next morning. I have conditions, he said. She didn't say I knew you'd call back. She didn't say anything triumphant or relieved. She just said, okay, tell me. The conditions were simple and serious, and August meant every one of them. She would not make decisions about Marcus without talking to him first. She would not attempt to position herself as any kind of maternal figure. That wasn't a door he was willing to open, and if that made him difficult, fine. She would be a presence, an adult in Marcus's orbit, a person he could speak to. Nothing more without explicit agreement. She would get the short-term lease she'd mentioned, 4 blocks away, and she would show up when invited and not show up when not invited. She would follow his lead on the parenting, his routines, his rules, his way of doing things. And she would tell Marcus the truth about who she was and why she was here. Not all the legal details, but the truth underneath them, that she'd been Damon's friend, that she'd loved him, that she wanted to know the Damon had loved. Petra agreed to every condition without negotiating a single one. You're not going to push back on any of that? August said. Why would I, she said. They're reasonable. Most people push back. I'm not most people, she said. And I think you already know that. He did a little. He wasn't ready to admit it. The first 2 weeks were careful and quiet and slightly awkward in the way that most honest things are. Petra came for dinner on Wednesday. August cooked. Smothered pork chops, rice, the green beans Marcus would actually eat. She sat at the table and talked to Marcus about his teacher, who apparently had a very strong opinion about the correct way to hold a pencil, which Marcus found personally offensive. She says I hold it wrong, Marcus said. How do you hold it? Petra asked. He demonstrated. She studied it. That's how my dad held his pencil, she said. He was an engineer, drew buildings for 40 years. Marcus looked at his hand. So it might be right. It might be a different kind of right. Marcus seemed satisfied with this answer in a way that August had not been able to achieve after 2 weeks of reassurance. He noted it without commenting on it. After dinner, Petra helped with dishes without being asked. August noticed that she did it efficiently, without performing helpfulness, the way someone does a task that's simply a task. Thank you for dinner, she said at the door. You don't have to thank me every time. I know. She put on her coat. I just mean it every time. The 3rd week was when things got harder. Marcus had a rough spell at school. Some social turbulence that 8-year-olds navigate badly, a falling out with his closest friend over something small that had somehow grown large, the way small things do at that age. He came home quiet for 3 days in a row, and August could see it in the set of his shoulders, that particular tightness that meant he was carrying something. August tried. He tried the direct approach and the indirect approach. He tried talking about it and sitting next to him on the couch without talking. He made Marcus's favorite dinner 2 nights running. Nothing opened the door. Petra came on Wednesday and saw it immediately. After dinner, while August was cleaning up, she sat next to Marcus on the couch where he was doing homework with the energy of someone doing something they hated. "You don't have to talk about it," she said. Marcus didn't look up. "I just want you to know that I know something's wrong, and I'm not going to pretend I don't." "My dad already knows," Marcus said. "I know he does." A pause. "My best friend thinks I said something mean," Marcus said, "but I didn't. I said something true, and he thought it was mean." Petra was quiet for a moment. That happens. It's one of the harder things. Truth and kindness don't always feel like the same thing to the person hearing it. "So what are you supposed to do?" Sometimes you have to decide which one mattered more in that moment. And then, if it turns out you chose wrong, you figure out how to say so without losing yourself in the apology. Marcus looked at her for the first time. "That's more complicated than what my dad said." "What did your dad say?" "He said sometimes friendships go through patches." Petra nodded. "He's also right." Marcus thought about it. Can both things be right? "Usually when something's hard enough to have 2 different right answers," she said, "it's because it actually matters." August, standing at the kitchen sink with the water running, heard all of this. He didn't move for a moment. Then he turned off the tap and stood in the quiet and felt something loosen in him that he hadn't known was tight. The weeks moved the way weeks do when you stop watching them so closely. Petra became part of the Wednesday rhythm, and then occasionally the Saturday rhythm too. When August needed a second adult for something practical, a school event that conflicted with a work obligation, a dentist appointment he'd scheduled on the wrong day, she showed up exactly when asked and didn't make it into anything larger than what it was. What changed, slowly and without announcement, was the texture of things. Marcus started talking differently, not more, exactly, but with more range. He'd say something at dinner that surprised August, a perspective he hadn't expected, and August would trace it back somehow to a conversation Marcus had had with Petra the week before. He also started asking about Damon. Not the tragedy of it, the before of it. What was he like in his 20s? What did he care about? Did he ever say anything about growing up in Houston? Did he have a favorite food? Was he scared of anything? Petra answered every question directly and without sentimentality. She didn't idealize Damon or protect Marcus from his full humanity. She told him Damon was impatient in traffic and loyal to a fault, and never admitted he was tired until he was exhausted, and could be spectacularly wrong about sports predictions, and had a laugh that you could hear from 2 rooms away. Marcus listened to all of it with the intense focus he brought to things he considered important. One Saturday, he said to August, "Petra knew him the best, didn't she?" "It wasn't a question in some ways," August said. "There are things I knew that she didn't." "Like what?" August thought about it. He was afraid of dogs until he was 12. He learned to ride a bike in a Walmart parking lot. He cried at the end of a movie once and made me swear not to tell anyone. Marcus laughed. Really laughed, the loose, easy kind. "You should tell her those things," Marcus said. "Why? Because she misses him. And those are the good ones." August looked at his son for a moment. "When did you get so smart?" he said. "I've always been smart," Marcus said. "You just got busy," he told Petra about the dog. It was a Thursday evening, later than the usual visits, and Marcus had gone to bed early because of a field trip the next morning. August and Petra had ended up on the back porch with 2 cups of coffee, and the yard was quiet except for the neighbor's wind chimes 2 houses down. He was terrified, August said. Any dog, any size. He'd cross the street. He wouldn't admit it to anyone. Then one summer Mrs. Patterson down the block had these labs, and somehow Damon decided he was just going to face it. He went over there every day for 2 weeks and just sat in the yard with those dogs until it stopped. Petra was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. Not a polite laugh, a real one, low and surprised. He told me he'd always been a dog person, she said. He was by the end. That's the thing about Damon. He'd work through the version of himself he didn't want to be, and then just become the other one, like it had always been true. I know exactly what you mean. They sat with that for a while. Can I ask you something? August said. Yes. What did he tell you about me? Honestly. She considered this. He said you were the most capable person he knew and the most stubborn, which he thought was related. He said you never asked for help, not because you were proud, but because you'd decided a long time ago that help always came with a cost. August looked at the basketball hoop at the end of the yard. He wasn't wrong, he said. No. Does that bother you? That I'm like that? She turned to look at him. It did at first. Then I realized that you'd let me come back. After you said no. She tilted her coffee cup slightly. You made conditions. You didn't just open the door. You built a door worth opening. He didn't say anything. Damon said you'd do exactly that, she added. He knew me better than I knew. He knew you better than he let on, is what I think. Week 7 was when August did something he hadn't done in a long time. He asked Petra for her opinion. Marcus had a chance to move up a grade in math, and the school wanted August's decision by Friday. Marcus wanted to. August wasn't sure. Not about the academics, but about the social piece. Whether the right move was always accelerated one, whether keeping pace with kids who'd known each other for years mattered more than a grade level. He called Petra on a Thursday morning. He hadn't thought about calling her. He'd just done it. I think you're not actually asking about math, she said, after he'd explained. What am I asking about? Whether Marcus needs to be pushed or whether he needs to be settled. August was quiet. He's had a year that required him to be flexible, she said. He's adapted well, but adapted and ready aren't always the same thing. I'd ask him what he wants, and then I'd watch how he says it. If he lights up talking about it, he's ready. If he explains it, he's convincing himself. August asked Marcus that evening. Marcus lit up. He called the school the next morning and said yes. He texted Petra. He lit up. She replied, Of course he did. He's your kid. Somewhere between week 8 and week 9, August stopped counting. He stopped counting the way you stop noticing a sound once it becomes part of the background of where you live. Petra was there on Wednesdays, and sometimes Saturdays, and occasionally for a random Tuesday pickup when August was stuck in a work call, and she was 4 blocks away, and it was just the practical answer. Marcus had started calling her by her first name with the ease of someone for whom it had always been obvious. Not Miss Petra, not the formal version. Just Petra. Like she was a person, which she was. One evening, August found them in the living room arguing cheerfully about whether hot dogs counted as sandwiches. Marcus had a position he was defending with both hands. Petra was dismantling it with calm, unreasonable logic. August stood in the doorway watching them and felt something he hadn't been prepared for. It wasn't gratitude, exactly. It was something quieter than that, like watching a window you'd kept closed for years turn out to be a door. He went to the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water and stood at the counter for a moment. Then he went back to the living room and said, Hot dogs are not sandwiches. They both turned on him immediately. He sat down. The 90 days ended on a Wednesday. He knew the date because he'd been tracking it privately, the way he tracked most things. Not obsessively, but consistently. Just knowing where the finish line was. It was a habit from work, from raising Marcus alone, from being a person who did better with visible structure. Petra came for dinner as usual. Marcus had helped August cook this time, standing on the step stool they'd had since he was 4, stirring something with the focus of a surgeon. They ate. They talked. Marcus told a long, detailed story about a disagreement at recess that August was fairly sure had more fictional elements than Marcus was acknowledging, and Petra listened to the whole thing with serious attention and only asked the question that mattered. How did it end? Okay, Marcus said. Actually good. Good endings matter, she said. After dinner, after Marcus was in bed, August and Petra sat at the kitchen table again. The envelope was gone. It had been gone for weeks. He'd stopped thinking about it entirely. But the date was what it was. 90 days, he said. Petra nodded. 90 days. So technically, yes. She held her coffee with both hands. The conditions met. The trust provision is satisfied. A pause. I'm not going to pretend I don't know what you're going to ask me. What am I going to ask you? She looked at him. Whether I'm still going to be here. August was quiet for a moment. Are you? He said. She set her coffee down. I want to be. I think you know that. She glanced toward the hallway where the staircase led up toward Marcus's room. But that's not the question you're actually asking. He looked at her. You're asking whether what happened here was real, she said. Whether the last 3 months were just. Damon's arrangement, working itself out. Whether I actually know your son, actually know you, or whether it just felt that way because the structure was set up to make it feel that way. August said nothing, because she was right. I can't give you a proof, she said. I can just tell you that I've spent the last 3 months with 2 people who became. She stopped. Started again. I came here because I lost someone and I wanted to be near what he left behind. That was the true reason. But somewhere in the middle of all of it, that stopped being why I stayed. Why did you stay? She smiled, just slightly. Because Marcus argued with me about hot dogs. August laughed, a real one. Quieter than Marcus's, but in the same family. That's a low bar, he said. It really is. She tilted her head. But I also stayed because you made conditions, because you didn't just let me in. You built something worth being let into. She met his eyes. Damon knew you'd do that. He was right about you. August thought about his brother. About the calendar notification that never got used. About the birthday cards that came every year without fail, $20 inside, quietly and consistently. About the way some people love you at a distance and mean every bit of it. Damon could have just asked me, he said. If he wanted this, he could have called and said, I have someone I want you to meet. I think she'd be good for you and Marcus. I would have listened. He knew that, Petra said. I think he was afraid you'd say yes out of politeness and not mean it. So instead, he set up the conditions where you had to actually decide. August looked at the refrigerator. At the drawings held up by magnets, the spelling tests, the 3-figure family portrait that Marcus had made without knowing why. He was smarter than I gave him credit for, August said. Yeah, Petra said softly. He really was. Marcus figured it out on his own, the way children do when adults assume they're not watching. He came downstairs one Saturday morning while August was making breakfast, and Petra was at the kitchen table with coffee, which had become its own ordinary thing, and he looked at both of them with the calm assessment of someone whose internal calculations had just completed. Are you going to keep coming? He asked Petra. If it's okay with you, she said. He thought about it with genuine seriousness. You can have Saturdays, he said finally. But Wednesdays I want it to be just us. He glanced at August. No offense. Taken, Petra said. You'd have to share the holidays, he added, like this was already decided. But you should know I take Thanksgiving seriously. We do it the right way. What's the right way? Marcus looked at her like this should be obvious. You eat until you can't, and then you eat a little more, and then you watch football even if you don't care about football. I can do that. Okay then, Marcus said, and climbed onto his stool to supervise the eggs. August caught Petra's eye over Marcus's head. Something passed between them that didn't need words. The kind of look that's only possible between 2 people who've been paying careful attention to the same thing long enough to understand it without explaining it. He turned back to the stove. Outside, the November light came through the kitchen window the way it does in Houston sometimes. Low and warm and longer than you expect, like the day itself has decided to take its time. And for the first time in longer than he could say, August Calloway wasn't counting. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for something that looks like permission. Permission to need someone, to let them stay, to call what's been built by its real name. August wasn't waiting anymore. And if you're carrying something heavy enough that you've forgotten what it feels like to set it down, maybe Damon's lessons applies to you too. The door you've been guarding so carefully might be worth opening. If you do it on your own terms, on your own timeline, for the right reasons, that's not weakness. That's exactly who you were all along.